is a spiritual deity. Freedom and liberty and justice shall fight for you. When you fight for freedom with all your soul, take it from me. This is Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, the voice of the nation, the voice.
And here is a special announcement from the leadership of Biafra government in exile. This is BCB.
This is a notice to Biafrans worldwide and the general public from the Biafra government in exile. Be aware that Biafra government in exile, BGIE, has nothing to do with the recent declaration of Biafra by an organization known as Biafra Republic Government in Exile, BRGIE. Biafra government in exile, BGIE, did not approve the so-called declaration. BGIE is not the same as and does not affiliate with so-called autopilot BRGIE. Biafra Government in Exile was established in 2007 with the support of critical figures of international community, including DIM, General Odumegu Ojukwu. Beginning as Biafra Foundation, Biafra Government in Exile was launched as a natural continuation of the Biafra government that terminated in 1970 and went into exile. Biafra Government in Exile is pursuing the restoration of a sovereign Biafra through legitimate, non-violent processes, including international negotiations, demands for plebiscites, or a referendum. Biafra government in exile does not support the use of violence in the restoration of Biafra. Biafra government in exile does not support the use of any form of violence, including violence perpetrated against innocent Biafrans in our homeland through the declaration and enforcement of stay at home. We reassert that Biafra government in exile does not support said so-called declaration and any violent activities in Biafra land.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra.
The first thing to say is that the foundation of our struggle for Biafra self-determination is non-violence. From the time of the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, MASOB, Biafra Foundation in Washington, and Biafra Government in Exile in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the movement has been conducted under a non-violent approach. We believe that our present fight for freedom and liberty is not one with guns and bullets, particularly not to apply all sorts of brutality and the killing of our own people under any guise, be that enforcement of sit at home or any other imposed civil disobedience action. Not at all. We are also vehemently against attacks on law enforcement agencies. Attacks on police and the army cannot be justified because we are not waging a physical war for independence. Rather, our fight is diplomatic, democratic, political, and intellectual. In that same vein, we totally condemn attacks by Nigerian law enforcement on peaceful Biafra agitators, on armed Biafrans singing in open fields, on the streets, and even taking refuge in places of worship, have been attacked and live ammunition opened on them. Thousands have been killed, detained, and disappeared. We call on the police, the DSS, and the army to release every Biafra detainee in their facility immediately, including Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, leader of IPOB. The demand for a referendum is not a call for war or violence. It is a political right, a civil right, the right for self-determination, an inalienable right enshrined in United Nations Charter on the rights of indigenous peoples. That right is what law-abiding Biafrans are exercising in their quest for the restoration of their nation. In the quest for them to be a free people in their own free nation. It's totally legitimate. It's acceptable all over the world. And a lot of nations have adopted that practice in seeking for their freedom. Biafra government in exile is in the forefront of this noble cause, a solemn duty on every Igbo person, and indeed for every Ijo, Efik, Ikwere, and Nyoma person, people from Asaba, Ibibio, Igboakere, Isoko, Okoja, and indeed all ethnic nationalities found within the old Eastern region that formed part of the First Republic of Biafra as declared by Emeka Odumegwu Ojukwu. A young nation gallantly defended by brave men and women for nearly 3 years against the mighty British who armed the Nigerian forces to the teeth. Backed by Russians and Egyptian pilots, they withstood them. Amazingly, Biafra stood strong against both internal and external aggressors. They fought in self-defense in the face of certain annihilation, extermination, and yes, genocide. So we look forward and not dwell too much in the past, but we will and should not forget our past and where we are coming from in order to forge a future that will be filled with equality, freedom, opportunity, and the rule of law. We do not only have the right to self-determination, we have the sacred right to exist as a people and as a free nation. Therefore, we must remain awake to threats of Islamization and the inherent dangers of the choice between the Quran and the sword. Every attempt to dip the Quran in the sea must be and will be resisted. Igbo land has never been conquered and will never be conquered. And all those sponsoring jihadist activities in Igbo land, in Biafra land, should be in no doubt that they will fall. Be it in form of terrorist Fulani headsmen or Boko Haram, bandits, kidnappers in Biafra land, they should be in no doubt that they will never succeed. We will fight back in self-defense and give everything to defend our land. We are not under any illusion about the internal elements working with the enemy to keep Biafrans in perpetual bondage. Our land is sacred. Every corner of our land is sacred. And in due season, those frustrating our efforts for freedom and liberty will soon realize the stupidity of their selfish endeavor. Whether you are a politician now or a businessman who relies on the patronage of your Fulani masters to remain relevant in Nigeria, making yourself inadvertently a willing tool for the destruction of your own people, a day of reckoning will surely come. And as sure as day follows night, payback time will surely come. Biafra is destined to be a free nation. Whether you are at home or in exile in a foreign country, it is time for you to lend your support in one way or the other to our liberation effort. But not, I repeat, not in contributing your money to those who have regrettably chosen the path of violence, deceit, and lies. If you're giving your money to them, you are complicit to the deaths of our own people. If you're being used as a tool to perpetrate violence, especially in Igbo land, spilling innocent blood in the name of Biafra and sit at home, kidnapping and stealing and causing untold hardship and pain on our people, especially the elderly, women and children. You must stop now while there is still time. Otherwise, you are bringing everlasting curse on yourself and your generations to come, and there will be consequences. And those funding you from overseas will not escape those consequences too. And that will rightly befall them and their generations yet unborn. We just have to look back in history to understand and to be clear that Biafrans are not violent people. Biafrans always go to help. Biafrans always look for ways to improve. Biafrans always look for opportunity to be the best that they can be in all facets of life. We have the brains and the ingenuity to liberate ourselves from this unfortunate bondage without being violent. Rather, we can choose to unite and pursue our cause through acceptable diplomatic and political channels that are open to us. For example, the demand for referendum must continue. It is the right thing to do. It is a legitimate political tool. In addition, we have to be organized. We have to work hard to differentiate ourselves through our culture, through our values, through our institutions, to be different and show that we are different from the rest of the Nigerian space that we've been yoked together unwillingly. Above all, we must raise new leaders, a new leadership in our land, of men and women who are pure in heart, selfless and determined to work for the common good, determined to take on the work of liberation and the work of development. We had them before in Dr. Emma Yokbala, in Sam Oti, Dr. Elowa, Pius Okibo, Ugu I Ugu, Sunday Okonkwo, Sir Louis Odumegwu Ojukwu, Dr. Kanu Ibiam, Chief Mbanefo, Chief Sam Mbakwe, and many others. New leaders who can resurrect the Eastern Region Development Plan, a bottom-up economic plan developed in the 60s by Arthur D. Little, hired by Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe from America. At the time, Dubai was still in darkness, a mere desert. They copied the plan, and today Dubai is seen as one of the miracles of economic development. But Biafra was there before, 30 years before them, ahead of Malaysia, ahead of Singapore. But the world conspired against us to stop our rapid growth in its tracks. And today, we find ourselves in the doldrums. slaves in our own land, being threatened all around us by Fulani headsmen, attacks on all sides, in our farms, in our villages, and in our forests, and we live in fear, with no respite, no leadership, no hope from our governors, who are only interested in their own selfish ambitions. We are today scattered all over the globe. It is time to turn around, look east, and start the work of rebuilding, starting with genuine fight for freedom, for liberty, and for equality in a nation we can call our own. I hope you think about this deeply, and I hope that you choose this path, a non-violent approach to freedom and liberty, and the building of a nation that will become the hope and the pillar of the African continent. Thank you, and God bless you, and may God bless our nation, Biafra.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, bringing you the news headlines for the week. In the news this week, Badenoch stands by Nigeria comments after criticism. I am Yoruba. I have nothing in common with Boko Haram haven of northern Nigeria, Kemi Badenoch. German agency urges Tinubu to restore peace in the southeast by releasing Nnamdi Kanu. Stay tuned for the details coming shortly. From the BBC, reported on the 11th of December 2024, Badenoch stands by Nigeria comments after criticism. Kemi Badenoch has stood by her past comments about Nigeria after the vice president of the West African country accused her of denigrating it. The Conservative Party leader, who was born in the UK but mostly raised in Nigeria, has repeatedly described growing up in fear and insecurity in a country plagued by corruption. On Monday, Nigeria Vice President Kashim Shettima suggested Badenoch could remove the Kemi from her name if she was not proud of her nation of origin. Asked about Shettima's comments, Badenoch's spokesman said she stands by what she says and is not the PR for Nigeria. She is a leader of the opposition and she is very proud of her leadership of the opposition in this country, he told the reporters. She tells the truth. She tells it like it is. She is not going to count her words. During a speech on migration in Nigeria capital Abuja, Shettima said his government was proud of Badenoch in spite of her efforts of denigrating her nation of origin. Shettima was met with applause when he said, "She is entitled to her opinions. She has even every right to remove the Kemi from her name, but that does not underscore the fact that the greatest black nation on earth is a nation called Nigeria." He compared Badenoch's approach to that of her predecessor, Rishi Sunak, the UK's first Prime Minister of Indian heritage, as a brilliant young man who never denigrated his nation of ancestry. It is unclear which comments Shettima was referring to, but Badenoch has frequently mentioned her Nigerian upbringing in speeches and interviews. Born Olukemi Adegoke in Wimbledon in 1980. She grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, and in the United States, where her physiology professor mother lectured. She returned to the UK at the age of 16 to live with a friend of her mother because of the worsening political and economic situation in Nigeria and to study for her A levels. After marrying Scottish banker Hamish Badenoch, she took her husband's name. At the Conservative Party conference this year, Badenoch contrasted the freedoms she experienced in the UK to her childhood in Lagos, where fear was everywhere. She vividly described the city as lawless, recalling hearing neighbors scream as they were being burgled and beaten, and wondering if her home will be next. Last week, during a tour of the US, she described her home city as a place where almost everything seemed broken. Her experience helped shape her conservative ideals and set her against socialism, she said. And indeed, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition party in the UK, the Conservative, has expressed the experience of the average Nigerian growing up in a city like Lagos. On to our next news headline. Reported by the Vanguard on the 13th of December 2024. I am Yoruba. I have nothing in common with Boko Haram haven of northern Nigeria, Kemi Badenoch. Kemi Badenoch, the leader of UK's Conservative Party, has sparked controversy with her recent comments about her identity and her views on Nigeria. In an interview with The Spectator, Badenoch emphasized her Yoruba heritage and distanced herself from identifying as Nigerian, citing the country's northern region as a hub for extremism. I find it interesting that everybody defines me as being Nigerian, she said. I identified less with the country than with the specific ethnicity, Yoruba, Badenoch said. I have nothing in common with the people from the north of the country, the Boko Haram, where Islamism is. Badenoch's remarks have drawn widespread criticism from Nigerians, including public figures who accuse her of presenting a negative image of the country on international platforms. This criticism comes amid her frequent comments on Nigeria's challenges with corruption and insecurity in British media. Vice President Kashim Shettima, who hails from Borno, a region heavily affected by Boko Haram, addressed Badenoch's comments. She could go ahead and change her name if she does not want any association with the greatest black nation on earth, the nation called Nigeria, Shettima said. Despite the black backlash, Kemi Badenoch has stood by her comments. Being Yoruba is my true identity, and I refuse to be lumped with northern people of Nigeria who were our ethnic enemies, all in the name of being called a Nigerian, she said. Reflecting on her Yoruba roots, Badenoch shared a personal anecdote. Somebody once told me when I was very young that my surname was a name for people who were warriors. They protected the crown, and that's what I see myself as doing. She concluded with a reaffirmation of her commitment to the UK. I'm here to protect, and I will die protecting this country because I know what's out there. And our last news headline for the day from thisdaylive.com. German agency urges Tinubu to restore peace in the southeast by releasing Nnamdi Kanu. And this was reported on Friday, the 13th of December, 2024. A German international agency, the German Initiative for Knowledge Transfer, has renewed its call for the federal government to end the insecurity in the southeast zone by releasing Nnamdi Kanu. The country director of agency, Honorable Obinna, made the call on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to intervene on Kanu's travails, saying that his continued detention has perpetrated the insecurity plaguing the southeast. In a statement made available to the media yesterday, Obinna advocated the need for presidential intervention to resolve the Kanu issue and free the southeast from the stronghold of insecurity. The country director of the German Initiative for Knowledge Transfer had made similar demands on the presidency when Muhammadu Buhari was in power, but the advice fell on deaf ears. But Obinna urged Tinubu to succeed where his successor failed by freeing the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, and restore peace to the zone. I appeal to President Tinubu to kindly intervene and graciously approve and direct the activation of a process that will see to the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and the restoration of peace and security in the southeast through negotiation and alternative dispute resolution mechanism, he said. Obinna advised Tinubu to act now and resist the temptation of using Kanu's release to score political points by waiting for election period before heeding the call to intervene in the matter. According to him, a timely commencement of this process will achieve the desired objectives. Further delay may defeat this goal, as some may view such gesture as mere political strategy. Without prejudice to the cases of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu versus federal government of Nigeria in different courts, I believe that the social and political issues that are remain for the restoration of peace and security in the southeast can be resolved through conversations. The country director stated that should Tinubu do the needful and let Kanu go, such gesture will not only portray the president as a unifier, but also ultimately showcase Nigeria as another example of Africans solving their problems without external directives. He said that his approach would make it easier for the security operative to distinguish between people who are agitating for one consideration or the other from those who attack security operatives in the southeast. Obinna reminded the Nigerian authorities that since even full-blown wars are settled through negotiation, it would be smart to avoid war through negotiation. He cited Rwanda as a country to emulate in building bridges of peace and reconciliation, saying that Nigerian authorities should be thinking of using peaceful means to tackle issues that pose threats to national security. He said, Rwanda of today is markedly different from the Rwanda of 1994. We can achieve a peaceful and a just homeland where no one is oppressed. If Rwandans can do it, Nigerians can do it too. It is smarter to talk about the cause of the problems instead of fighting about it. Obinna expressed disappointment at the attitude of the Southeast leaders to the resolution of the insecurity in the zone, noting that they do not seem to see the need to approach the president and seek his intervention. Many people have cancelled their planned trips to the east this festive season due to many incidents of kidnapping and attacks on security operatives. Yet the political leaders of the southeast do not seem to be bothered about these insecurity challenges in their area of responsibility. After all, they ride B6 or B7 ballistic-proof vehicles that cost hundreds of millions of taxpayers' money. The country director said it is hard for anyone to really believe that the president would ignore the political leaders of the geopolitical zone in the country if they approach the commander-in-chief on an issue that affects national security. Any development effort that does not consider the primacy of security cannot be said to be robust, he said. And that brings an end to our headlines for the week. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, saying thank you for listening and goodbye, friends.
Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
To